It is rare, but as of this very afternoon, we are officially in uncharted territory because never before have the American people at large observed such pervasive and disruptive and jagged, such gaping new fault lines rupturing and exploding in spectacular fashion along the MAGA movement's powerful landmass. Of course, for the past few days, supporters of Donald Trump have had their spears trained on one another in the aftermath of the Trump administration's conclusion that there is, quote, no there on the so-called Jeffrey Epstein client list. But it wasn't until today that Donald Trump entered the chat and Trump himself stabbed at some of his own supporters, calling them, quote, weaklings. Those voters who continue to ask for answers around the Epstein-related conspiracy theories. Donald Trump even suggested that his supporters, the MAGA faithful, are, quote, doing the Democrats' work for some reason, and asserted he didn't want their support anymore anyway. It is a supreme political betrayal for those voters who not only voted for and supported Donald Trump, but stuck with him through grabbing women in the you-know-where on the Access Hollywood tape, through a deadly insurrection, through 2 impeachments, all in the name of proving and punishing such conspiracy theories like the Epstein files. People for whom targeting allegedly corrupt elites wasn't just a campaign promise, along with, I don't know, whatever else people were into, but a worldview, a platform. Consider the political aftershocks making their way through right-wing media right now. Big online personalities like Megyn Kelly insisting she will not just let it go, even when talking to other like-minded right-wing personalities.
This is me not having drawn a conclusion. I don't know what the truth is. I've been reporting in a way, I mean, I see you've taken a side that you've chosen to believe the story that's being offered, and that's fine. A lot of people have. I'm not there yet. I don't actively say that there's a pedophile ring. I don't say any of that. I'm just following the facts, and we're not at the place where I can draw that conclusion.
Well, no, I can draw the conclusion that the evidence that I'm seeing and the people who are speaking about it lead me toward this particular conclusion.
And then there's Joe Rogan. Now, Joe Rogan is different. He holds a special and uniquely powerful place in and adjacent to the MAGA movement, with followers likely as loyal or more loyal to him than they are to Trump. He's repeatedly, though, tapped into these conspiracy theories and others. Watch what he had to say.
They've got videotape, and all of a sudden they don't. You know, you have the director of the FBI on the show saying there's no tape. If there was, nothing you're looking for is on those tapes. Like, what? Why did they say there was thousands of hours of tapes of people doing horrible? Why did they say that?
Right.
Didn't Pam Bondi say that?
What, are you talking about Epstein or Diddy?
Yeah, Epstein.
Yeah, she said it literally, I think, a week before you had the FBI director sitting here telling you there was nothing, right?
She said something about that there was like thousands of hours of tapes of people doing horrible crimes.
There is. And didn't the FBI dude say that there was nothing?
Kash Patel said there's nothing you're looking for. Oh, okay. Okay.
When they mix up the Epstein cover-up and the Diddy cover-up is when I get really intrigued. Intrigued we all are. It's where we start today with some of our favorite reporters and friends. Wired reporter David Gilbert is here. Plus MSNBC columnist, author of the newsletter To the Contrary, Charlie Sykes is here. And with me at the table for the hour, MSNBC senior political analyst Alex Wagner is here. Alex, I was thinking about your militia reporting. Do you remember that reporting that you did?
I sure do.
So the way, and it predated January 6th by months, many months.
Yeah.
But I remember watching it, and I think I had you on like 7 times because for me, it's like, what are all the things we missed before Alex Wagner is out interviewing people, showing their faces, talking about the armed civil war they're ready to fight on behalf of Donald Trump?
Yeah.
And this feels like the same kind of story. What are all the things we missed before we got to Trump's entire movement rupturing in public view spectacularly over what they believe to be a cover-up?
Well, I mean, this sort of like what happened pre-January 6th gets at the central sort of conceit of MAGAism, which is the government is a corrupt cabal. They're lying to you. They're only doing what they're doing for naked self-interest. And it's all shrouded in secrecy and mystery, right? The Epstein thing touches on that central sort of premise, the argument that Trump sold to his people, only this time he's on the other side. He's in opposition to his supporters and the people that believed in this kind of conceit. It also undermines Trump's fundamental role within the movement, which is he's the no BS guy. He's the guy that's going to tell the truth. He doesn't act with a filter. Everything is uncensored, sometimes to his own great, peril. It puts him in a difficult position, but damn it, this is what he does. And here he is saying there's nothing to see here. And if you're interested in it, there's something wrong with you. So I think in that way, the break is along, pardon the medical metaphor, but it's along two sort of like bone lines that are really essential to the sort of structural integrity of MAGA, right? It's not I promised you no wars. It's not a foreign policy thing. It's not a domestic.
Right, I promised you cheaper things, and I didn't deliver on that either. It's not a policy promise.
This is the sort of emotional core of MAGA. This is the emotional core of the promise. And now you're seeing a revolution, a revolt. I don't know which one it is quite yet, but it is MAGA eating its own. It is Megyn Kelly and Charlie Sykes and Benny Johnson and Steve Bannon saying, whoa, 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 whoa. It's not Jamie Raskin and Adam Schiff talking about the integrity of our democracy, though that is essentially essential and important. This is a different order of magnitude.
Charlie Sykes, you got name checked, but I would say you came around to the truth on this a lot sooner than some of them.
I think she was referring to Charlie Kirk, and I don't want to be confused with
Charlie
Kirk. I do not want to be confused with Charlie Kirk. But no, I mean, Alex is exactly right. I mean, this is the conspiracy theory of MAGA. This was their justification for going after the evil, demonic Democrats. And what is really striking to me is that Donald Trump has lost the plot, maybe for the very, very first time. I mean, he has reason to believe that he could shoot somebody on Fifth Avenue and not lose anyone. He's also been very successful in bending reality to his will. To making his base, think the way he thinks. He's also, keep in mind that he's the executive producer of The Trump Show, and one of his superpowers has been that he determines what we talk about, what they talk about, and what we don't talk about. The last 7 or 8 days, he has failed. He has failed to set the agenda. We are now talking about exactly what he does not want to talk about. And every time he opens his mouth, every time he puts out one of these social media posts, he digs a deeper hole. And this again goes back to that he's lost the plot. You cannot ask this vast movement to marinate in a certain idea of these pedophile cabals as a justification for so much of what he's done, and then suddenly push a button and say, though there's nothing to see here, none of it's true. I mean, for years, the Epstein files have been the files that were going to blow the lid off the Democrats, right? And now suddenly he's pivoting and saying, no, it's the Democrats who wrote them. And if you care about something that I have told you to care about for years, you're doing the Democrats' bidding. This is not just mind exploding for us, because we're used to having our minds explode. It's mind exploding for many of the people in MAGA, and you see that playing out. And so I think he's rattled by this. I think you can feel it when he put out the post over the weekend and he got ratioed on his own social media platform. I think he sort of felt sort of a rumbling in the, out there in the universe. He heard something that he had not heard before, and these are the kinds of things that he pays attention to, and that he's controlled up until now.
And I think, Charlie, the lesson for people on Earth One or outside of MAGA or who have observed, I guess with distress and some dismay, I'll speak for myself, his power over MAGA is that it's not just he's being eaten by this conspiracy cloud he created. Yeah. It is as though he told these people they now have to take the COVID shot. I mean, that is the emotional betrayal of telling them, I'm not going to release the files. I've seen them. I think Comey wrote them. I don't know when he thinks Comey wrote them, between the time he asked him to drop the Flynn case and 2 weeks later when he fired him. I mean, it's such nonsense. It is revealing how stupid he takes his base to be. And I think the test, if you're on, and I think today the test for those of us on the outside is just to sit back and watch whether their sacrifice for their dignity or their intelligence or other things that used to be sacred, at least for the Republicans, includes being called stupid. That is the part of the story I'm completely intrigued by.
No, this was what he did today was a big middle finger to the vast majority of his own base. Now, I mean, he's insulted a lot of folks over the years, but to go after them for believing what Kash Patel and Pam Bondi and Dan Bongino and others and the Charlie Kirks of the world had been telling them was very, very important. And now to tell them, you guys are suckers. Now, actually, David French said something in the last hour that was very, very important. And that's hard for, I think, a lot of us to get our heads around it. And the point he made was you have to understand how hermetically sealed the MAGA world is from a lot of the things that we have been talking about over the last 10 years. And for millions of people in Trump's base, for millions of people, and he prefaced by saying this is hard to believe, this is the first time that they've actually thought, oh my goodness, Donald Trump is lying to us. So for the first time, you have millions of MAGA supporters who are now realizing, oh my gosh, we didn't realize that Donald Trump is a liar. Now, of course, we will say, where have you been the last 10 years? How did you not see this? But for many of them, this is the one issue where suddenly it's like, wait, the Donald Trump that I thought that I was supporting is not that guy. He is now covering up for these elites. He is actually has broken a fundamental promise that we have counted on for much of the last, the last 10 years. And so that's one of the reasons why it feels so different, why the ground feels a little bit shaky for Donald Trump.
Maureen Comey, daughter of former FBI Director James Comey, has just been fired from her job as federal prosecutor in Manhattan, a position she's held for nearly a decade. Maureen Comey is known for prosecuting someone you might have heard of, that guy, Jeffrey Epstein, and someone else that you might have heard of, Ghislaine Maxwell, seen here with Jeffrey Epstein. According to NBC News, one source familiar with her termination said the reason given was Article 2 of the Constitution, which outlines the president's powers in the Constitution, including his ability to appoint federal officials. Her firing comes as Donald Trump and Attorney General Pam Bondi face backlash from MAGA supporters for refusing to release more information about Epstein. This firing also comes as the Trump administration investigates Maureen's father, James Comey, and former CIA Director John Brennan, accusing them of lying to Congress during the probe into Trump's alleged 2016 Russia ties. Christy Greenberg served as a federal prosecutor in the Southern District of New York, where she worked with Maureen Comey, and she joins me now. First, just your reaction to the news, Christy.
Just discussed. Just a few weeks ago, I was in the Southern District of New York courtroom where Maureen Comey was giving her rebuttal address in the Sean Diddy Combs trial. I can tell you it was the best rebuttal jury address I've ever heard. It was incredible. She was incredible throughout that trial, just such command of the courtroom. She is somebody who is really beloved in the Southern District of New York. She's been a supervisor of the violent and organized crime units where I worked with her, as well as the public corruption units. She has prosecuted many high-profile cases. She is truly a prosecutor's prosecutor, somebody that people look up to, and this has to not just hit me hard, but all of the people who've worked with her and know how great a prosecutor she is. It has to hit them hard as well today.
I should note that I think, part of this Laura Loomer, who I can never quite find the right way to describe her on air, that's sort of fit for air, but she says, she said this back in May. Why does James Comey's daughter still work for the DOJ? Why hasn't Blondie fired her? Blondie being the name she used for Pam Bondi. And here's Charlie Kirk sort of echoing similar sentiments to his audience. Take a listen.
We are your students in dismantling the deep state. And this cancer has been festering in this country for decades. So the boil is the intelligence community. The boil is James Comey is involved in all of this stuff. James Comey's daughter is the prosecutor on the Ghislaine Maxwell case. You think of all the prosecutors that could have been chosen in the federal government. Maureen Comey, I think that's her name, was chosen as the prosecutor on the Maxwell case. Come on.
I mean, what's the conspiracy theory there? Like the woman that actually prosecuted this woman and brought her to justice is the cover-up?
Right. I mean, we're truly in the idiocracy right now, because if you care about prosecuting sex trafficking cases, which is what a number of these individuals say they care about. And that's why they're so obsessed with Jeffrey Epstein and holding his co-conspirators to account. That's exactly what Maureen Comey did. She was the lead prosecutor who held his co-conspirator Ghislaine Maxwell to account. She is serving a prison sentence of 20 years. She was convicted at trial of 5 sex trafficking counts. She is arguably the most preeminent sex trafficking prosecutor in the country right now. So when you ask why hasn't she been fired, that's why, because she gets results, because she is an excellent prosecutor.
One thing here that I think is worth kind of taking a second on, and I don't think this is sort of the most pressing, and I think most people don't care about this, but I do, so give me 60 seconds on it. Article 2 of the Constitution does not allow the president to unilaterally get rid of the entire concept of the civil service. Like, the civil service exists for a reason. It was brought about by both a combination of statutes passed by Congress and signed by presidents, as well as findings by the Supreme Court over a century. What he is asserting here is the president can fire anyone for any reason, anywhere in the government, at any time because of Article 2.
So I have not. It's been reported that apparently Maureen Comey got a letter, and in that letter, Article 2 is what is cited as the basis for his power to fire her. And this goes back to their whole theory of the unitary executive theory, right? That, as you said, that the president has these comprehensive control over the executive branch, its officers, including the power to remove them all. And unfortunately, it seems the Supreme Court sort of, is in agreement with this very expansive view of the executive authority. And we've seen that in a lot of recent Supreme Court cases where the court is kind of chipping away at these protections for civil service employees. It's troubling, and especially when you look at a place like the Department of Justice in the Southern District of New York, where traditionally pre-Trump, it was, it did act independent of the executive. Not so much anymore, obviously.
All right, Christy Greenberg, thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Joining us now, University of Michigan professor of economics and public policy, Justin Wolfers. Faz and Ashley are still with us. Justin, you're new to the bunch. Talk to me about the decision, if he follows through with it, as the reporting suggested he was flirting with last night, to fire Jerome Powell.
Like, what a fabulous day we've already had today, Katie. We between 11 o'clock and 12 o'clock, we plummeted into a recession, and then we came back out of it by noon. There's a bit of overstatement there, but let me explain. The Wall Street Journal had the story that Trump was planning to fire Jay Powell, the Fed chair. Were he to do that, it would be a major blow to the independence of the organisation and, in fact, people's trust in the US financial system. So stocks tanked. An hour later, seeing that, Trump walked out in front of the press and said, "Just kidding, I have no intention of firing Jay Powell." The extent to which things moved is quite extraordinary, because you have to realise this was simply the rumour that he would do something that perhaps markets had already priced in some possibility, and it was only talking about replacing one of the 12 members of the Federal Open Market Committee. So if stocks can move that quickly and that much, they lost about $250 billion this morning before putting it back on a couple of minutes later. It does sort of tell you just how important markets think the Fed's independence is for the US economy, and just what a tragic mistake it would be were we to tear it up because of one old man's grudge against a very fine public servant.
That's one way to put it. Ashley, does he actually think that he can get away with firing Jerome Powell?
Well, what Trump likes to do is, first of all, it's clearly something he's interested in. He has said as much, even before drafting this letter and sharing it with House Republicans and getting their opinion that maybe it would be a good idea. And this is often what Trump does. He floats something publicly, he floats it privately, he sends up these trial balloons, and then he waits to see the reaction before making a decision. In this case, maybe the markets was a sufficient reaction that Red, you just had up on the screen, to pause this idea. But I don't think we can say that this idea is out of sight, out of mind. It's something he's talked about. It's something he wants to do. It's something he's considering doing, and it's something that he may yet do. We just don't know.
His polling on the economy, Faz, is not good. I mean, you could say that he got elected based on the economy. People had a bad vibe on it, even though the numbers didn't quite match up. They didn't feel it was good. There was immigration stuff. But the numbers on the economy for Donald Trump, supposed to be one of his strong suits, not great at all. 60% of Americans disapprove of it. Are the Democrats doing enough to, in your opinion, seize the moment?
Not yet, but we got some time, and hopefully we'll continue to build our case. To your point, I think you raised this earlier in the show, and I agree with it, which is when Donald Trump finds himself in these kinds of problems that he's now dealing with, Epstein, in related issues, he moves to a distraction. And I tend to think and to see the Powell move as one to say, hey, go look at this shiny object. He raised it in a House Republican meeting, hoping that it could stir some discourse that, distracts us from, economic conversations and other conversations that he doesn't want to be having. I mean, you remember this when he and Musk were at war, and then suddenly that weekend we have in LA major ICE protests going on, that same weekend. So I tend to see this as really an effort at distraction. To your point of building a Democratic voice on this, it gives us the opportunity to express, hey, here's how you can build credibility with people who are feeling like, who's Donald Trump working for? The rich and the powerful. This crystallizes that. What's interesting is that the numbers on the economy, the hard data on the economy, hasn't changed all that much. And tell me if I'm wrong on this, Justin. Hasn't changed all that much since Donald Trump won the election, since Joe Biden left office. I mean, the numbers for inflation, relatively the same. The cost of things, relatively the same. The stock market had a big dip, but it's back up. But the vibes that people are feeling are still bad. I mean, they were good for a second. Now they're bad again. They feel like they can't afford stuff. They're worried about tariffs. They're worried about coming inflation. They're worrying about the cost. I mean, obviously, they're worrying about the cost of housing, the affordability crisis. That is still there. And Donald Trump, even though he won off this idea, not doing all that much to affect it in the minds of Americans, Justin.
Katie, you do so much worrying. I worry that maybe you're not getting enough sleep, mate. Unfortunately, I don't have good news for you. You're absolutely right about everything you just said. If you look at any of the surveys, and this is not just surveys of mums and dads, it's also surveys of business leaders and executives, they're terrified about the future of the economy. You're right to contrast that with the hard data, which is to say the real numbers about what are we producing and who has a job and what's rolling off production lines, which looks pretty normal. Let me add some nuance there. It's not as strong as it was at the end of 2024. There, we were still getting some of the post-COVID slump, excess catch-up, and things were moving a little bit too fast. But they've moved back to a little slower, but still they're in a pretty good place. Now, let me just give you one quick reconciliation between the two. People are miserable. The data so far is not. Now, realize one of the things we're terrified about is tariffs. Most of the tariffs didn't go into effect until April. They didn't apply to goods that were already on the boats. So therefore, the next boat that leaves China for the US, it takes a month to get here, and then it takes a few months to get out of customs. And by now, we're all the way through to June. And then they finally hit the storerooms of stores that bought a lot of stuff in advance. So they haven't happened yet. And let me also point out, the thing that's terrifying, the thing that economists have come on your show, like me, to say, be worried, is that Trump would put very, very high tariffs on the world. And so far, what he's done is threatened it a lot, but not actually implemented it. And so the problem is, no, we're not seeing huge effects of huge tariffs because so far they haven't happened, although he keeps threatening them. And I do want to emphasize, if he follows through this time, I do think the effects will be very dramatic and very negative.
And our top story this hour is the fallout. House Speaker Mike Johnson now calling for more transparency over the Trump administration's handling of the Epstein case. It comes as the president continues to urge his supporters to move on. NBC News Chief Justice and National Affairs correspondent Kelly O'Donnell has the latest.
The MAGA movement's push for public disclosure of the Justice Department's files on notorious sex offender Jeffrey Epstein now includes a high-profile Trump ally.
I'm for transparency.
House Speaker Mike Johnson.
It's a very delicate subject, but we should put everything out there and let the people decide it.
A push for damage control from the president's own daughter-in-law, Lara Trump.
I do think that there needs to be more transparency on this, and I think that will happen.
Attorney General Pam Bondi tried to deflect Epstein questions.
Nothing about Epstein. I'm not going to talk about Epstein.
Reporters pressed her on new comments from President Trump, suggesting Bondi consider opening some files.
She's handled it very well, and it's going to be up to her. Whatever she thinks is credible, she should release.
The president said today you would release credible files related to Mr. Epstein. Are you prepared to do that, and when would you do it?
Our memo speaks for itself, and we'll get back to you on anything else.
That DOJ memo said it found no incriminating client list, no credible evidence of blackmail, and therefore no further disclosure. That stunned some Trump supporters because she had said this in February when asked about a client list.
It's sitting on my desk right now to review.
Then her push to clarify.
My response was, it's sitting on my desk to be reviewed, meaning the file along with the JFK, MLK files as well. That's what I meant by that.
The controversy lit a political wildfire in MAGA world.
Make some noise if you care about the Jeffrey Epstein scandal.
NBC's Kelly O'Donnell with that report. Joining us now, congressional correspondent for The New York Times, Annie Carney. Annie, your new reporting for The New York Times is entitled, "For Hard Right Lawmakers, Trump's Shift on Epstein is Just the Latest Breach." And you write in part, quote, "After a 6-month honeymoon in which a fractious Republican Party has remained mostly united by unblinking allegiance to the president, there are now signs of a potential fraying of Mr. Trump's political coalition. In the past few weeks, Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene and other right-wing Republicans have criticized the administration's bellicose stance on Iran, the president's reversal on supporting Ukraine in its war against Russia, and the Justice Department's pivot on the Epstein matter. They have suggested that on each issue, Mr. Trump has betrayed the voters who elected him. I don't accept it, and I don't think anyone else should accept it," Ms. Greene said of the decision not to release more information about Mr. Epstein. "I just think that it's a punch in the gut when regular people go to jail all the time, when they mess up and they do something wrong, and then it always seems the rich, powerful elites escape." Annie, talk about, if you could, more on that, especially with the president saying that the people who are pushing this are bad people. Isn't he speaking directly to his base and calling his base bad people at this point?
Yeah, I mean, this is elemental. The lawmakers I spoke to on the Hill yesterday, Marjorie Taylor Greene, Nancy Mace, Lauren Boebert, Tim Burchett, these are stalwart Trump loyalists. These are far right. You know, these are people who, when Democrats call them extreme MAGA Republicans, they say thank you. And they all mention that their phone lines are just blowing up. They are hearing from the base, and this is not something that their base can just say, oh, Trump told us to look away and we will. Marjorie Taylor Greene's quote gets at it. It's not just about the prurient nature of the scandal. It also goes to this class issue, that the billionaires get a different shake, and they thought Trump was something different, was going to break that system, and covering this up is potentially a reminder that maybe he's not different. And that's where this anger is coming into. This is elemental to the MAGA movement. And one thing that's going on is, I mean, that Marjorie Taylor Greene quote that you just read, I mean, Democrats were nodding along with her, something they've probably never done with the Republican they hate the most on the Hill. But we're seeing a lot of this. Republicans giving quotes, criticizing Trump's agenda, like we saw it with Josh Hawley criticizing the Medicaid cuts, basically saying things Democrats would love to just like copy and paste and put in their ads.
You know, Rev, it's
David French did a great job in our last hour explaining, kind of walking through how, as Annie says, this Epstein story is foundational to the MAGA movement, that it gets to, they believe, the corruption and the criminal activity, according to them, that exists at the highest reaches of powerful people in this country. But it's been fascinating to watch President Trump grapple with this, even just in the last couple of days, because this is a man who he wasn't close with, but was certainly an acquaintance of, and Jeffrey Epstein had praised 20 years ago, so he's a terrific guy, talking about his affinity for younger women. To watch him now, something that he had helped fan over the years, now say, this is a fake news story. It's not coming from the mainstream media. He's trying that angle. It's a reflex. It's coming from his own supporters who do not want this story to die because they believe there's more there than even Donald Trump is letting on.
Well, they believe there's more there because he helped them to believe that there was more there. And the fact is that he helped to build his brand on birtherism, and that I am against the elite. I am going to tell you about the privileges they're getting that we're not getting, when he was the elite. And nothing has brought that home more than this Jeffrey Epstein situation, that a lot of his true believers are saying, well, wait a minute. One of the reasons we stood with you is because we wanted to stop these guys, the pedophiles, the elite guys that could do whatever they want and get away with it. And now you're telling us there's no foul there, there's no there. And I think that he is being caught up by his own words and captured by what, a whole kind of thing that he created. And he's not been able, this one of the things that I've noticed, he's not been able to change the story. Usually he'll come with something that we'll forget about it in 2 days. He's not been able to bury this story.
Yeah, he threw out the idea of stripping Rosie O'Donnell's citizenship as an effort to distract her.
She was born here.
And that didn't go anywhere, and it was quickly shot down. But I think Charlie Kirk actually is the most interesting. He is one of the biggest MAGA supporters, always has been. He said on a Monday show, we heard him over the weekend. He was outraged by this. We need to find out more. But then after President Trump tried to knock this down over the weekend, he said, okay, I'm not going to talk about it anymore. But then yesterday, we just played that sound of Trump saying that Pam Bondi, the Attorney General, should release credible things. What happened? Charlie Kirk went to Twitter immediately, put up that video, and listed 10 different things that he deems credible, including DOJ testimony, et cetera, et cetera. There's the list right there. Well done. This shows that this is not going away. And then Annie Carney, as Charlie Kirk represents, I think, sort of the anger in the MAGA base, I'm really struck by House Speaker Mike Johnson, who is so loath to defy Trump in any way, shape, or form. And yet he's out there yesterday saying, actually, there should be more of this information released, because he's clearly hearing it from his constituents and his caucus. So walk us through there, if you will, the thought process from a speaker who's usually so reluctant to cross the White House.
I completely agree with you. I mean, the story of Mike Johnson becoming speaker, staying speaker, holding onto that gavel, his entire political strategy is that there is no daylight between him and Donald Trump. Tying himself to Trump is how he maintains his power. So to see him say, just, shortly after Trump said, look elsewhere, to hear Mike Johnson say, yeah, we should release the files, was remarkable. I haven't seen that this Congress or since Johnson came to power. He hemmed and hawed a little bit, said it's not my lane, but there are things that Congress can do. At the end of the night yesterday, Thomas Massie, one of the few Republicans who's willing to break with Trump regularly, filed a discharge petition to have a floor vote about whether or not to release the Epstein files. This would allow him to go around leadership. It's a majority of members to sign on. But maybe Mike Johnson will bring that, if he's feeling the pressure, he'll bring that vote to the floor himself. We'll see. But I think what's going on with Mike Johnson there is he's hearing, his phone lines are blowing up too. I mean, they are so aware of how much this matters to the base in a way that really we haven't seen with another issue. And I think Mike Johnson saying that is just showing the political pressure that the lawmakers themselves on the Hill are feeling from Republicans on this issue, on wanting more transparency.
All right, New York Times correspondent Annie Carney, thank you so much for your reporting. The recent book she co-authored is available now. It's entitled Madhouse: How Donald Trump, MAGA Mean Girls, a former used car salesman, a Florida Nepo baby, and a man with rats in his walls broke Congress. It's the best title I've ever heard. Thank you, Annie.
It's time for Money, Power, Politics. Trump's next big tariff deadline is August 1st, about 2.5 weeks away from now. So far, he appears to have only landed a few primary agreements, and he has sent dozens of letters to countries dictating new tariff rates. But today, he insisted all those letters now count as deals and said there are more coming.
We have some pretty good deals to announce, but every time we send out a letter, that's a deal. The big one really is going to be on the 150 countries that we're really not negotiating with, and they're smaller. We don't do much business with them. We'll have well over 150 countries that we're just going to send a notice of payment out, and the notice of payment is going to say what the tariff, and it's all going to be the same for everyone, for that group.
Did you hear what he said? Every time we send a letter, that's a deal. No, it's not. But I want to hear what the Nightcap says about this. Max, what is your reaction to this?
You know, we've talked about these deals for quite some time now, and it's clear that Donald Trump doesn't love the actual deal, but he loves the attention and the show business of it all.
Yeah, and he loves people coming to him saying, please, sir.
Oh, they love it when, they kiss up to him and the whole 9 yards. But what's amazing is what Donald Trump is not talking about, right? He's not talking about actually bringing manufacturing jobs to America, which isn't from a trade issue. That's a domestic growth issue. He's not talking about addressing the war in Ukraine. Any hard-to-tackle issue, he's not actually discussing. So it's going to be more of the same, I think. I think he likes the fact that he can push the expiration date over and over and over again, and no one seems to care, because this is his ideal circumstance, pure, unadulterated, meaningless show business.
Okay, if he wants to bring manufacturing back, then his most recent move, imposing this big tariff on copper, is going to do just the opposite. Mm-hmm. What is your take on this?
Oh, I think the rest of the world sees this for what it is. I mean, you have now Pew data saying that countries like Brazil, Germany, France, Canada, Australia, Italy have the same view of the United States that they do of China. Maybe like 1 point difference. What? Same view from these major economic countries that are supposed to be our trading partners and our allies. And what they see in China is reliability and predictability. So the whole volatile market thing, can't see where I'm moving, can't catch me, it only works for Trump's showmanship. It's not working for any long-term deals or investments. Wow. Add on top of that the thing that the United States had going for itself was the willingness to use soft power investments, development dollars to build things, to give back to communities, effectively buy goodwill. That is not a Trump concept of buying goodwill. He will bully you into giving you his minerals or your minerals, but that's getting rid of that effectively got rid of the other piece of the puzzle that the world cared about.
I mean, the key meme of the second Trump administration is the one where he's, here's a tariff. Oh, this is going to be great for the economy. Oh, I'm taking it away and I made a deal. Oh, that's the art of the deal. I mean, like, you've seen this meme, I'm sure.
Yes.
It's this Schrodinger's box in which every country in the United States are in a constant state of both being tariffed and having a deal almost in place. And we're never going to get to be open that box, because once we do, once it's settled, it takes away the showmanship. It takes away the interest of Donald Trump. And it's just like, all of us have been through this so many times. Of course, the markets are going to be like, right? Like, all of us are like, all of America's like,
What I don't get is these smaller countries, they're not even economic powerhouses. Sure. So what do we get out of this?
What do we get out of bullying Japan right now? Where we literally own their military operation there after World War II. They don't even have a military. What do we get by bullying them at this moment?
I mean, the biggest tell here, obviously, is Brazil, right? He goes to Brazil and is like, I'm putting big tariffs on because you were mean to my friend. Right? Like, that's literally what he said about Bolsonaro, and he wants to have the charges dropped against Bolsonaro. Like, okay, well, like, how's that an economic emergency? How's that a valid use of presidential power? But this is what he's doing, right? He sees it as leverage, which is part of why he enjoys it, and then he enjoys the showmanship.
Right, but we still don't even know if he's a free trader or a protectionist. That's what's also so crazy about all of this. Is it that he is upset that other countries have tariffs on us? Or is he upset that there isn't enough manufacturing in the United States of America, which would mean that irrespective of other countries' tariffs on us, he would want tariffs on them? One day he's the ultimate free trader. You eliminate your tariffs, we'll eliminate ours. And the next day he's saying, I don't care what you do. We want to have tariffs here at home for tax production and manufacturing.
How much leverage do we have in terms of these tariff talks?
most of these aren't even real conversations, right? That's the challenge. Like,
What do you mean by that?
Who are the diplomats? Who are the negotiators here in this situation? Like, where are these meetings happening? At what level are these meetings happening? Sending a letter is not really an illegal opening salvo for anything binding. So you have these high-level phone calls in which leaders and foreign ministers are trying to just calm him down and cool things off. But there is no actual discussion back and forth about, all right, what does it look like to change our economic trade agreement?
Right. And all these deals we've seen are just total broad strokes. Like,
I mean, do you remember the North Korea quote unquote deal that we had? And it had lots, we had a visit, we had flags. There was no actual deal.
All right, I have a new topic. We all know how much the president hates it when numbers contradict his narrative. Now his administration is purging and defunding agencies that track federal data. I want to understand what is at stake. What does that mean for all of us? Because, well, the average person might be like, the data we get from these agencies are how businesses figure out how to invest, how to plan, how to hire.
It is how we know the truth about our current reality and our recent history. And the collection of federal data has been considered something completely politically independent. The jobs numbers that we talk about every month, that is the Department of Labor and Bureau of Labor Statistics. What we know about what is happening with the weather and meteorology, that is also government data that we collect. What this allows Trump to do is erase any record of what might contradict his desires and his policies. And it also makes it very difficult for people to make independent decisions. And so it increases reliance on personalities and politics and those who get access to senior officials, rather than, we can make decisions because this is a free, open, and fair sharing of information.
It's also how we execute good politics, right? So if anything, our numbers production with the federal government was already horrible. He's about to look at how the Biden administration reacted to inflation. They caught it like 18 months later. My 5-year-old knew about it because he was, I guess he doesn't get pissed off about the price of pizza. I buy it. But you get my point, right?
The price of pizza is really, it remains very high.
Where did the dollar slice go?
Listen, we talk about it all the time. My show was just saying, remember when it was a $30 dinner and somehow it's a $50 dinner now? Go get a small ice cream somewhere at $6.50. When did that happen?
We used to have date night on Fridays. Now it's once a month.
Maybe it's because nobody wants to go on a date with you, but that's neither here nor there. Go back to this.
So, look, it was clear that the Biden administration did not identify inflation because their numbers were horrible and their head was in the sand. That's not a reason to eliminate these offices. That's a reason to do exactly the opposite. Double down, triple down on your investment in them and actually bring them into the 21st century so that we can get our politics right, which is the execution of public policy based off of the needs and sentiments of the people, what they're feeling, what they're saying, and what they want. That's what makes this so horrible.